Hi, I'm Jackie Hutter, award-winning IP strategist and founder of the Hutter Group. Welcome to Winning with Patents. In the next 20 or so minutes, I'm going to walk you through how companies like Procter Gamble have used patent strategy to create billion-dollar product categories, and how you, as a startup innovator, can apply these same tools and techniques to your own business to build durable competitive advantage. Let's talk about Procter & Gamble, or P&G in the company's well-known shorthand name, and its frankly best-in-class patenting strategies. At first glance, you might think of P&G as this massive, slow-moving corporate giant that sells everyday household products. But here's the surprise. When it comes to innovation, P&G actually behaves much more like a startup innovator than a traditional Fortune 500 company. They use an approach they call constructive disruption. Now, what does that mean in practice? It means they don't just sit back and tweak existing products. They intentionally look for ways to shake up the status quo. They push themselves to anticipate what consumers will need next, sometimes before consumers even realize it themselves. They look at entrenched business models and ask, why not challenge this? Why not do it differently? And when they see an opportunity, they go all in to create entirely new product categories from scratch. But here's the really critical piece. P&G doesn't innovate just for the sake of showing off cool ideas. They're disciplined. They only invest when they believe a new product category has the potential to hit at least $1 billion in annual sales. That's the bar they set internally. If an idea doesn't have that scale, it doesn't get prioritized. And because they stick to that bar, they've had huge, repeated successes. The Swiffer, which took a mundane task, floor cleaning, and turned it into a $500 million global franchise within just a few years. Fab Breeze, which transformed odor elimination into a multi-billion-dollar worldwide business and became a brand that people use as a verb. And Tide Pods, which didn't just improve laundry detergent, they redefined it, creating an entirely new subcategory worth billions by itself. None of this happened by accident. It's tempting to say P&G was lucky or simply had great marketing. But luck doesn't consistently create billion-dollar categories. Strategy does. And the foundation of that strategy, patents. Without patents, these innovations would have been easy for competitors to copy. With patents, P&G was able to build legal and commercial moats around their new categories, giving them the space to grow, dominate, and own those billion-dollar markets. But let's step back for a moment. Why do patents matter so much in this story? The answer goes back to a concept known as the innovator's catch-22. Here's how it works. First, an innovator, whether it's a giant like P&G or a scrappy startup, creates a solution that solves a real problem for customers. That innovator takes on the early risk. They spend money on R&D. They test, refine, and validate that the product actually works in the marketplace. Once consumers adopt it, the innovator earns the payoff. Premium pricing, strong margins, and the credibility of being first to market. But here's the catch. Once a market is validated and customers show they're willing to pay, competitors start circling. And for them, the economics look very different. They don't have to spend years experimenting or educating consumers. They just need to copy what's already been proven to work. And it's not just that copying is easier, it's also cheaper and less risky. The competitor can reverse engineer your product, spend far less on development, and then undercut you on price. The result? They can siphon off your hard-earned customers and leave you struggling to defend the very market you created. This is where patents come in. Patents are the legal mechanism that says, wait a second, you can't simply take what I invented. They protect the innovator's right to enjoy the rewards of their investment and prevent competitors from free riding on someone else's risk. And here's a critical point I always emphasize. Copying isn't stealing if there's no patent. Competitors aren't breaking the law by copying an unprotected innovation. They're just playing the game by the rules that exist. Which is why, if you want to capture and hold the value of your innovation, a strong patent strategy isn't optional. It's absolutely essential. So, how exactly does P&G protect its billion-dollar innovations? Well, here's the first thing to know. They don't just file a single patent and call it a day. That's what many startups do, and it's one of the biggest mistakes in patent strategy. A single patent is like putting one lock on the door of a mansion. It might slow down an intruder, but if they find the right key, they can get in. P&G does something different. They build an ecosystem of patents around each innovation. Think of it as not just locking the front door, but also the back door, the windows, the garage, and even putting up a fence. It's about creating layered protection. Take Febreze as an example. When it launched, Febreze wasn't just another air freshener. It was a category creator. Instead of covering up odors with fragrance, it actually used cyclodextrins, complex sugar molecules that trap and neutralize odor particles. P&G patented that core technology so nobody else could make a true odor neutralizer without infringing. But they didn't stop there. They also patented the packaging and dispensing systems, how the product was sprayed, how it was delivered, and even the ergonomics of the bottle. That meant a competitor couldn't just say, "We'll use cyclodextrins," but put them in a different sprayer. Then they layered on patents for the manufacturing methods. These covered the actual processes required to make Febreze at scale. That created another barrier. Competitors couldn't even replicate the product behind the scenes without bumping into P&G's IP. And as consumer insights rolled in, P&G continued to file improvement patents on new fragrances, better delivery systems, different product formats like car vent clips and fabric refreshers. Each new filing thickened the web of protection. What they built is called a patent thicket, a dense cluster of overlapping patents, each protecting different aspects of the consumer experience. The effect is powerful. Competitors can't find an easy path to launch a legally safe alternative. And this is exactly why P&G doesn't just create new markets. They maintain control over them for years, sometimes decades. The patents don't just block copycats. They give P&G the breathing room to invest in branding, scale, and consumer trust without constantly looking over their shoulder. Before the Swiffer WetJet, cleaning floors was frustrating and unsatisfying. Consumers really only had 4 main options, and none of them solved the problem well. Sponge mops were popular, but they had a huge flaw. The sponge would trap dirt inside it, and once that happened, you were basically just smearing dirty water across the floor. And once you rinsed the dirty sponge once in a bucket of clean water, you were using dirty water to clean your floor. Yuck. Cotton string mops, which are called Navy mops by some old-timers, were another option. But these were heavy, messy, and honestly kind of gross. The strings held onto water so it could take hours to dry. It was hard to clean and so had to be replaced often. And if you didn't replace it, you were likely faced with a smelly mop head, which indicated that bacteria was making a home in the strings. And who wants to smear bacteria all over their floor? Since I'm from South Florida, I used what we called Cuban mop, which was essentially a rag wrapped around the end of a stick. It was cheap, but you still likely were using a dirty rag and water to clean your floor. And that brings us to the last option, hands and knees with a rag and a bucket. It was back-breaking work, time-consuming, and still left you with dirty rinse water that you spread back across the floor. And that was the common denominator of all these methods. They relied on dirty water and a dirty implement to clean the floor, be it a sponge, a bunch of cotton strings, or a rag. Instead of cleaning, you were often just redistributing grime for your baby to crawl over. Now, let's look at what P&G did to disrupt the status quo world of wet floor cleaning in the late 1990s. Here's a Swiffer WetJet system, which most people are probably very familiar with today. The mop head and pad. At the bottom, you have the disposable cleaning pad. This isn't just a rag. It's a specially engineered pad that's absorbent, textured, and transparent. It soaks up liquid, traps dirt, and even lets you see how much dirt you're picking up. The oversized design helps you reach into corners that a traditional mop can't touch. The cleaning solution? Cartridge mounted just above the mop head is the solution bottle. Instead of using dirty water from a bucket, you snap in a fresh, sealed cartridge of cleaning fluid. And here's the clever part. It's easy to insert, but not refillable. That means consumers buy refills, and it ensures quality and safety every time. The spray mechanism. At the press of a button on the handle, a battery-powered sprayer delivers a fine mist of cleaning solution directly onto the floor. This eliminates the need for a bucket and ensures you're always cleaning with fresh liquid, not dirty water. The mop handle and mop head. The handle isn't just a stick. It's ergonomic and swiveling, which makes the mop head easy to maneuver around furniture. Some versions even have a built-in scrubbing strip, so you can tackle stubborn spots without bending down. Together, these pieces form a system. The pad, the solution cartridge, the sprayer, and the handle were all designed to work hand in glove. And importantly, each of these components was covered by patents, meaning competitors couldn't simply copy one part of the system without bumping into P&G's intellectual property. The result? P&G didn't just create a better mop. They created an entire new way of cleaning floors, one that consumers quickly embraced, and one that competitors wanted to emulate. When people talk about P&G's success with the Swiffer WetJet, they often focus on the advertising or the clever disposable pad model. But just as important was their patent strategy, specifically what's known as a patent thicket. So what does that mean? A patent thicket is a dense web of overlapping patents that together make it extremely difficult for competitors to bring out a copycat product without running into legal problems. Instead of relying on just one or two patents, P&G layered many of them across every part of the Swiffer system. Here's how they did it. The pads. They filed patents on the absorbency, the textures, the shapes, and even on small details like the transparency that lets you see the dirt you've picked up. Each one of these features was separately claimed. The refill cartridges. They patented the way cartridges are inserted, the locking mechanism that prevents refilling, and the formulation of the cleaning fluid itself. That means competitors couldn't just change the bottle shape or tweak the fluid without bumping into IP. The mop handle and head. They patented the ergonomic design, the swiveling motion, the scrubbing strip, and even the way the handle interacts with the disposable pad. Again, each of these was a layer of protection. Manufacturing methods. P&G even protected the behind-the-scenes processes, how the pads are made, how the components are assembled, how the cleaning solution is produced. This ensured that even if someone wanted to build a knockoff, they couldn't simply replicate the supply chain. The effect of all this was powerful. Even if a competitor tried to design around one patent, they'd likely hit another. It wasn't just about blocking direct copies. It was about creating a legal minefield where the safer, cheaper option for competitors was simply to stay out of the market. P&G's patent thicket didn't just protect an invention, it protected a billion-dollar ecosystem. Here's the result. Before 1999, there really wasn't anything you could call an innovative floor cleaner market. Mops and buckets had looked the same for generations, and while they got the job done, nobody thought of them as high-value products. P&G didn't just improve the mop, they created an entirely new category of cleaning. And thanks to their patent strategy, they've been able to own that category ever since. How? By making sure that competitors couldn't just swoop in and sell a cheap copycat version. The patent thicket P&G built around Swiffer meant that anyone trying to launch a similar product would face serious legal risk. Instead of fighting battles in court, most competitors simply stayed away or were forced to make watered-down versions that never gained traction. This allowed P&G to do three very powerful things. First, they could confidently charge premium pricing. Consumers didn't compare Swiffer to bargain mops. They saw it as a completely different solution, one that was faster, cleaner, and more convenient. Second, they left no room for low-quality substitutes. Without the patents, the market would have been flooded with knockoffs, driving down prices and eroding consumer trust. But with the thicket in place, Swiffer stood almost alone on store shelves. And third, they kept innovating. Every time consumers asked for something new, like scrubbing strips for tougher spots, or battery-powered sprayers to make cleaning even easier, P&G added those features and filed new patents. Each update strengthened the wall around their market. The result is nothing short of remarkable. For more than 2 decades, P&G has maintained category leadership in a product space they themselves invented. Swiffer didn't just create a new way of cleaning floors, it created a sustainable business model that continues to generate revenue year after year, long after its initial launch. And all of that was made possible because P&G treated patents not as a legal afterthought, but as a core part of its business strategy. But here's the key. Your patents must align with the customer problem you're solving, not just the cool thing you invented. Too many startups fall into the trap of patenting the gadget, the widget, or the technical feature in isolation. But customers don't buy products for features. They buy them because those features solve real pain points. Think about it. Customers didn't buy the Swiffer wet jet because it had a swiveling handle. They bought it because it saved them from washing their floors with dirty water. They didn't buy Fab Breeze because of cyclodextrins. They bought it because it made their homes smell fresh and inviting. As a startup founder, you have to think the same way. So, ask yourself some tough but important questions. What is the whole solution my customer is paying for? Is it convenience? Is it confidence? Is it time savings? How can I deconstruct that solution into parts? Break it down into the technology, the delivery mechanism, the packaging, the user interface, even the business model. Where can patents plug into each of those parts? Don't just protect the core idea, protect the ecosystem around it. For example, if you're launching a smart medical device, don't stop at patenting the sensor. Look at the software functionality, the data flows, the user interface, even the cloud connectivity. If you're developing a consumer supplement, don't just patent the composition. Think about the delivery format, the packaging, or the method of use. The goal is simple but powerful. Make it cheaper, safer, and faster for competitors to go through you than to go around you. That way, you don't just have a patent, you have a business moat. But here's where startups are very different from P&G. P&G could actually survive even if their patent strategy wasn't perfect. Why? Because they've got an army of complementary assets that act as a safety net. They have world-class distribution channels that guarantee shelf space in every grocery store. They have massive brands that consumers trust. They have decades-long retail relationships that competitors can't easily replicate. So even if one of their patents were weak or even invalidated, they've got enough muscle in other areas of the business to hold on to market share. But startups don't have those luxuries. You don't have global distribution. You don't have millions of dollars for marketing campaigns. You don't have a century of brand loyalty to fall back on. What you usually have is one thing, your innovation. And you may only get one chance to protect it properly. If your patents are weak, or worse, misaligned with what customers actually value, competitors can watch as you validate the market, then swoop in with copycat products. They don't have to take the early risk you took. They don't have to educate the customer like you did. They can simply imitate your solution, sell it cheaper, and undercut you. And here's the tough truth. Unlike P&G, you don't have the time or resources to fight a long war. You don't have 5 years to rebuild after being knocked off. If a competitor eats your lunch in year 2, that could be the end of the company. That's why, for startups, patents can matter a lot. They're not just a box to check or a nice-to-have asset for investors. They can be the core defensive wall that keeps your business alive long enough to grow, scale, and eventually build those complementary assets that big companies already enjoy. So, the big question, how can you win? The answer is to treat your patent strategy as an integrated part of your business strategy, not as an afterthought, and definitely not as a box to check for investors. Here are my rules. Rule number 1, think of patenting as a process, not an event. Too many founders treat patents like a one-and-done filing. They write up what they've invented today, file it, and then move on. The problem is your business evolves, your product evolves, and your customers' needs evolve. Your patents have to evolve too. Building a strategy means thinking about where your company is going, not just where it is today. Rule number 2, use insights from customer discovery and market validation to define what you patent. If you're following lean startup or any modern innovation process, you're already talking to customers, testing assumptions, and learning what really matters. Don't let that insight die in your pitch deck. Feed it into your IP strategy. Patent the parts of your solution that customers say they value most, not just the features your engineers think are cool. Rule number 3, always incorporate the voice of the customer. At the end of the day, investors, acquirers, and competitors care about customer value. A patent that protects a technical feature no one cares about has little business value. But a patent that locks down the very thing customers are willing to pay for, that's powerful. That's the kind of IP that investors will lean in on and that competitors will respect. Rule number 4, think forward. Don't just look at what your product does today. Ask, how will this innovation change customer behavior in the future? Will it shift expectations about convenience, price, performance, or design? If the answer is yes, that's a clue that you should be building IP protection around that future state, not just the current one. Rule number 5, build a patent team that gets it. Not every patent lawyer is strategic. Many are trained to write claims and push filings out the door. But that's not what you need. You need a team that understands your business model, your growth trajectory, your investors' expectations, and your exit strategy. The right patent team should feel like an extension of your strategy, not just a service provider. And here's where I'll share one of my favorite sayings. Proper preparation prevents poor patent performance. It may sound blunt, but it's the truth. If you prepare strategically, you'll end up with patents that actually protect what makes your business valuable. If you don't, you risk wasting money on filings that won't stop competitors when it really counts. In other words, don't think of patents as paperwork. Think of them as weapons in your business arsenal. When used strategically, they don't just protect ideas, they protect markets, margins, and growth. So let's bring it all together. P&G didn't just create products, they created entire billion-dollar markets like Swiffer, Febreze, and Tide Pods. And the reason they've held on to those markets for decades isn't luck. It's largely because of their patent thicket strategy, which is a system of protection that makes it almost impossible for competitors to legally get around them. The lesson for startups is clear. You can apply the very same principles. In fact, you must. Because unlike P&G, you don't have brand power, global distribution, or massive advertising budgets to fall back on. What you do have is the chance to make patents your first and strongest line of defense. When you align your patents with the real problems your customers care about, you're not just creating intellectual property, you're building real business value. You're protecting your market, strengthening your margins, and giving investors a reason to believe in your growth story. I'm Jackie Hutter, and this has been Winning with Patents.
If you want more strategies, stories, and tools for creating startup success through patents, make sure to subscribe, follow, and stay connected. Because when it comes to innovation, remember, patent outcomes don't depend. They are planned. Thanks for watching, and here's to building patents that help you win.